See that right there? That is a giant piece of petrified wood. And you see that right there? That is Immigrant Peak, Montana. That's where I'm going right now. All right, hello, welcome to the New School Vlog, episode 3. My name is Blake. I'm about halfway up this hike. Out behind me, a beautiful valley with the Yellowstone River running through it. And speaking of behind us, let's start off with a quick review of episode 2. So in the last couple weeks in my class mentoring new teachers, we read the book Drive, all about this hierarchy of human motivation, specifically like an inverted pyramid, at the base of it being biological motivation. On top of that, we have extrinsic motivation, or like our worldly needs. And on top of that, the most massive and most important is intrinsic motivation. And what's holding up all that weight? Well, the 3 pillars: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So we already dove into the nitty-gritty of intrinsic motivation. If you want to learn more, watch episode 2. But for now, just a thought experiment. Consider this. So you know, like dogs, right? Like dogs. For a moment, for me, imagine that you're a dog. Imagine your best case scenario for dog you. So with that image in your head, like best version of dog you, let me ask you some questions. Do you have personal freedom in your life? Like maybe a doggy door to an open backyard, or like a food dish that's always full? Do you have activities in your life that you enjoy practicing, like frisbee or swimming or like chasing squirrels? And finally, do you serve a purpose? Are you like a hunting dog or like a service dog? Maybe you just protect a family? If you thought deeply about any of those ideas for dog you, then you should consider them deeply for human you as well. Check it out, I found snow. All right, on to episode 3. So, since we finished the book Drive the last couple of weeks, we started a new book, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. It's one of those managerial books about brave leadership and creating cultures of courage. I know that sounds like a lot of business mumbo jumbo. In fact, this book looks just like one of those books you used to buy in airports before onboard Wi-Fi. I mean, I don't personally mind reading these management books because I don't care if you're a teacher, if you're a manager of a sales team, if you're a head chef, or just a parent. There's a common theme to these books, and that is, if you're managing humans, it's the human that comes first. Approach those that you're responsible for with a sense of empathy and an awareness for the human condition, and the management aspect will just organically bubble up. Yeah, all right, I made it to the first fall summit. Just behind that right there is the true Immigrant Peak, and with the sun setting and me being all alone in grizzly country, I'm not gonna make it there today. Hey, but not bad, huh? All right, so this book, Dare to Lead, is broken down into 4 sections. To start, rumbling with vulnerability. Then on to living into our values, braving trust, and finally, learning to rise. And just like this hike, I'm actually only halfway done with the book. So instead of diving into a full synthesis of the book itself and my thoughts on it, I'm just going to start by reading some of the favorite quotes that I've come across so far. So this first section, rumbling with vulnerability. What is rumbling, and what really is vulnerability? Well, to start, a rumble in this case is defined as a discussion, conversation, or meeting defined by a commitment to lean into vulnerability, to stay curious and generous, to stick with the messy middle of problem identification and solving, to take a break and circle back when necessary, to be fearless in owning our own parts, and as Harriet Lerner teaches, to listen with the same passion for which we want to be heard. Now, vulnerability, the emotion we experience during times of uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Like, for example, when you're alone on a mountaintop, or when you're, alone on a mountaintop of emotions. Now, there was a quote to start a chapter by Manoush Shafiq that I particularly found interesting. In the past, jobs were about muscles. Now, they're about the brain. But in the future, they'll be about the heart. So often you hear these motivational speeches about what to do right, but no one ever tells you how to do those things. So here's a one-liner that stuck out to me that shows your support and shows you leaning into vulnerability. Let's say you assign someone a difficult task, and let's say they have that look of confusion on their face. You ask them, what does support look like for me? That opens a door to conversation and hopefully calms some of that innate fear that someone might feel being handed a new responsibility. But remember, leaders must either invest a reasonable amount of time attending to fears and feelings, or squander an unreasonable amount of time trying to manage ineffective and unproductive behavior. Catch people doing the right thing. It's much more powerful than collecting behaviors that are wrong. It's not what you do, it's why you do it that matters. Here's a hint. If you're ever on like a first date or meeting someone for the first time, instead of just asking like, oh, what do you do for a living? Try this one. So, what do you do for a living? And why? And relating back to the last book we read, just like the pillar of intrinsic motivation, this comes from the chapter labeled Daring Leadership, Cultivating Commitment and Shared Purpose. Take the time to explain the why behind strategies and how tasks link to ongoing priorities and mission work. This is just as important in the classroom. If you don't tell your students why they're learning, they're not going to have that drive to want to learn it. We are curious beings. We want to know the why. And explaining the why just gets everyone on the same page. Maybe as a leader, it could feel a bit vulnerable to lean into the reason why you're doing things. I mean, these are your ideas. Maybe they're not even fully worked out yet. But having that open conversation, I mean, that's what rumbling with vulnerability is. And if you've ever worked for a manager or you've ever been a math student that wasn't told why they're doing something, I mean, you know, you're just a cog in the machine at that point. So from what I've read, the reason why Brene Brown has written this book stems from a quote found right on the front cover. Leadership is not about titles, status, and wielding power. A leader is anyone who takes responsibility for recognizing the potential in people and ideas, and has the courage to develop that potential. Brene is providing an example of leadership. She's doing these things. She's encouraging and promoting the potential in me, in you, in anyone who comes across this book. And to publish a book takes a good amount of courage. And as a reminder, the reason why I make these videos, besides a personal portfolio, I want to provide insight into what teachers learn to hopefully inspire and promote the potential in you. And I want to have open conversations about the current state of affairs in education and provide real ideas on how to mend them. So that's it for me. I will finish this book. I will come back and finish this hike in a future video. For now, consider this. Do you have a mentor from your past that maybe didn't treat you like the human being that you are? If you had a chance to tell him one thing now in the future, what would it be? Ponder on that until the next video. And one more thing for me, keep human being the universe. Making my way down the trail, walking fast, hope I don't pass a bear. Woo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Random noises.